The Varmints.
I go to work 2 days ago, and they got the road next to the mall completely shut down. And I mean, cops everywhere. It almost looked like construction or an accident or something, but I mean, it is just shut down. About a half hour later, we noticed there's camera crews everywhere. So we're like, oh, something good. And of course, I'm thinking gigantic accident.
Did they have, like, was it just normal cops, or did they have, anything special out there?
Well, from what I could see, and I was just looking out my window, I could see just cops.
Right.
All right. So that was it's probably started about 8:30. About 9 o'clock is when we realized there was media out there and shit. So we're like, oh, this is a big one. All of a sudden, I see a fucking cop going through the parking lot with a bomb sniffing dog.
Oh, shit.
Whoa, something's up.
They're going under every car in the bushes and jet. You know how that parking is set up.
Yeah.
So they're right outside my office window. I'm looking at them. I'm like, if they're out there sniffing for bombs, why the fuck aren't we being evacuated? And I swear to God, 30 seconds later, the cops came in and evacuated the building.
Whoa.
I go out there and I introduce myself. I shake his hand. He's like, well, we're just taking precautions, but we're gonna evacuate the entire building. Okay, fantastic. Do I have enough time to call, my boss and let her know what's going on? And he looks me dead in the eye. He goes, 90 seconds or less.
Oh.
So we hustle everybody out and we check the bathrooms and all that stuff. So we go outside. There are 6 news crews all over the parking lot. They fucking tape off the entire east side of the mall. And, you guys both know this is a giant mall.
Right.
And it ended up being 5 news helicopters hovering around and 1 sheriff helicopter just circling. He ended up circling for 2.5 hours. So we're out there. We still have no idea what's going on. Of course, everybody starts getting on their phone. We're standing out in the parking lot with all these idiots from Best Buy, and we're out there. My team members go online and they say 4 devices were found in the parking lot.
Holy shit.
Yeah, 4 devices. All right. So we're reading all this stuff and we're getting some conflicting stories. Just all this shit going on. The news crews were there the whole time. They ended up doing a live news conference, like with the sheriff, somebody from the sheriff's department, right from the parking lot. I was on the phone with my mom, and she's like, they broke into The Price is Right to show this news conference, and I'm like, oh, if they're breaking into Price is Right, this is actually a big deal.
This must be the real deal, man, if they're interrupting Price is Right.
And I thought, Drew Carey, I could see that, but Bob Barker never would have stood for that shit. Bob would have made sure they didn't get interrupted. But anyway, they're basically saying, okay, they're investigating that they're just, taking precautions and all this shit. 3 hours later, they start taking down all the police tape, and they came up to us, and one cop comes up to the group and he says, he's like, okay, it'll be about 15 minutes, and then, everything's clear. We're going to let you guys all go back to work. And then the guy who did the news conference gets out of a police cruiser, and he gets out with some woman who's dressed in, like a business suit type of thing. So I don't know if she was public relations or really high up or something. But I mean, she came right up to our group, and she was 3 feet away from me. And she said, the devices are neutralized. It's safe to go back in. The devices are neutralized. All right. I'm like, okay, so they found devices.
Do you think, JD, that the police PR woman that's what they say rather than coming up and being like, it was nothing?
My take on it would be that we all worked there, and technically if there was devices, we were all at risk. I would think if it was nothing, they would say, don't worry, folks, it turned out to be nothing. You're all perfectly safe. Not, the devices have been neutralized. There was multiple crime scene investigators, and they kept popping out and taking everybody's picture that was standing around. And my team members were like, what are they taking our pictures for? I'm like, are you guys naive? They're doing facial recognition and shit to see if you're potentially somebody on the fucking one of the watch lists or something.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Yeah.
So like every time the cops were like circling around and you knew they were taking pictures, every time I saw a cop with a camera, I turned my back to him. I was turning out perfectly and I was having a ball. You ain't getting a clear shot of me. Then the helicopter kept going by. I'm like, I wonder if he's circling just to get a shot of me. I went back in, and by the time I got everything I needed to do done to get the store back open again, I went online and looked, and they were already reporting that they didn't find anything.
Oh, really?
And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't find anything? I was told the devices were neutralized. The Orlando Sentinel reported they found something next to a cop car. And then they're saying, oh, it was a bag of tools they found next to a cop car. I'm like, who the fuck puts a bag of tools next to a cop car, right?
Is there a mechanic next to the bag of tools next to the cop car?
I am convinced, man, that it was no small deal, and it was no small amount of time. I mean, they were there for 6 hours, and The devices are neutralized, or exactly what I was told from the police. And then right away, the story was, oh, it was nothing. And then they, depending on what you read online, it was saying that, oh, it looked like they were strategically placed as a hoax. And then you go to the next website and they're like, no, it was nothing. They weren't strategically placed. It was just coincidence. 4 different things that a bunch of people called into 911 because they all saw it, because obviously everybody's hyper vigilant right now. And they shut down that mall, and then they're going to tell you it was nothing. I don't believe it. I fucking don't believe it. I don't believe
See,
that.
I'm like totally the opposite of you. I'm always thinking they try to make something big out of nothing to make themselves look good, and
Right.
we're on opposing ends of that scale, man.
It used to actually be there'd be integrity in reporting. The most important thing was to be right. Now the most important thing is to be first. And CNN, who made its bones with the Gulf War and became like the preeminent news agency, they got so many motherfucking things wrong. And they just throw it out there. And why? Because eventually they figured out there's no accountability.
That was a great point that you made. The best thing you could do with news nowadays is something big happens, give it about 3 days, and then start looking either online for good sources like real reporters. Eventually they'll get most of the details down. Don't waste your time with it, because all it is tripe and shit, and who got it out there fast. They just trot on like all these experts talking about all this bullshit, and it means nothing because they don't know anything.
It's funny to watch though, man. The fucking going from channel to channel and listening to the conflicting reports, it is fucking hilarious. But I have to admit, I have a lot in common with the news now in the way that I process things. I get half the information, and then I make some crackpot fucking assumption, and then I just run with that, and then I make a bunch of comments that are completely irresponsible. So I essentially am CNN now. I'm the living embodiment of CNN. We have the exact same level of responsibility when it comes to reporting. Well, and the fun thing was, the idiots from Best Buy start throwing a football around. There's news cameras.
We mean idiots. They're having fun.
What if there are bombs and this makes national news? Do you really want to be the guy not only throwing a football around during a bomb scare, but throwing like a girl? None of them can throw. They all throw like a bunch of bitches.